Welcome to the Sabbath Cafe podcast. This is episode 126, Finding Closure and Moving Forward. You can find transcript and more at www.sabbathcafeblog.com. And here's the podcast. Hi everyone, welcome to the Sabbath Cafe podcast. I hope you're doing well. The last couple of months really felt like they flew by for me because since January, I started helping out with my parents. I helped them with some part-time caretaking, and I also drove them to their physical therapy appointments. Also, my husband started a new job, and to make things work, we had to really make sure that we're on a strict schedule so I can help with my parents and still make sure that my family's needs are met. And that turned out to be a lot of work for me. Thankfully, the therapy program finished recently, and so my schedule is more flexible now. And just reaching this milestone and seeing how my parents' condition have improved, I was so encouraged. Now, you think that this swimming, my stress level would come down, but for some reason, my emotions were still wound up really tight. And so I realized that I probably just need to sit down and unwind my thoughts. So one afternoon, I had some time and I decided to journal. And journaling is my go-to tool to try and process my thoughts anytime I feel like I have a lot of emotions jumbled together, or I feel like my thoughts are going way too fast and I'm not quite sure how to change or shift them. I will purposely spend some time journaling. And all I'm doing is just to write out my internal thoughts on paper. And then when I'm able to see what my real concerns and perhaps even uncover some underlying fears, then I'm able to actually deal with these real issues and then I can move forward. And what's interesting was that when I was writing out my thoughts, I started to see how much of my heart and my thoughts still revolved around my parents and my caretaking role. I discovered that emotionally, I wasn't quite ready to let go yet. Actually, their recovery process is only about half finished. But over and over again, I just sense that the Holy Spirit is just speaking to me that this is a good time for me to take a step back. And God reminded me about all the other projects I put on hold, and that includes my own family's needs. And even though I'm still helping out with my parents, it's actually a good time for me to shift my focus back to my own life and continue down my path. And I find myself asking, but they're still in the middle of this healing journey. If I let go, then who will help them? And that's when God reminded me about what things looked like back in January, and it was pretty difficult. And to see how far we've come and how much things have improved, it just really hit me how faithful God has been through the whole process. He was the one who started us down this path of healing. He was the one who took care of my family and answered my prayers, and that He will be faithful even in the next season. And it's time now for me to let go of the responsibility that I took up in the last season and to entrust my family to God so I can start my new season too. And after I had processed through these thoughts with God, I felt much more at peace. Even though my family's healing process is not finished yet, I feel much more ready to release them into God's hands. In a sense, through this time of journaling and reflection, God was teaching me how to have closure. Even when my emotions may not be ready to let go, but when I took the time to reflect and think back on the last 6 months and how faithful God has been, I was more ready to trust God with all of the questions I still had. And after I went through this exercise, it really helped with my attitude. I find myself having an easier time trusting God about my family and becoming more excited to see what new things God has in store for me. Often, we go through life changes without spending time to reflect on what happened before or to dialogue with God about any questions we still have. Even if we move into the next season, these lingering thoughts and questions may open doors to doubts or regrets in the future. I'm grateful that God didn't ignore any of my concerns and He helped me work through them so I can be at peace moving forward. If there are any questions or thoughts from your past that often pops up, I would encourage you to not ignore those thoughts and to dialogue with God about it. Maybe you can find closure and peace in those areas too. And to help with that process, I've created a guided journal PDF. You can find the PDF and transcript for this podcast at www.sabbathcafeblog.com. Thank you so much for listening to the Sabbath Cafe podcast, and we'll see you next time.